Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation because it really was a really great piece. So let me just briefly introduce everybody and then we'll get right into it. So first we have Rick Young, who is a longtime investigative producer with Frontline, the PBS documentary series since the early 1990s. And then in 2009, he launched a partnership with the Investigative Reporting Workshop at American University. And they've since produced, I guess, about a dozen films for Frontline through that partnership, including Trump's trade war, which we'll talk about tonight. Emma Schwartz is also a producer and an investigative reporter with Frontline. And since 2012, she's worked out of the AU offices of the Investigative Reporting Workshop. She's worked on many of Frontline's films as well, including a film, Big Sky, Big Money, which won an Emmy, and another which won a Loeb Award, Blackout in Puerto Rico. And then I want to say next to her, but it depends on where they are in your computer, but Fritz Cramer, who is also a producer and an editor with the same partnership. He joined, I think, starting from the beginning in 2009, and has since worked, I think, on most of the co-productions between IRW and Frontline. He also worked on Big Sky, Big Money, as well as two other documentaries, that were recognized by investigative reporters and editors as among the best: Business of Disaster and Poverty and Politics and Profit. And then last, Laura Sullivan, who is a correspondent with NPR, where she joined the national desk in 2004. She's one of their most decorated journalists. She's a winner of 3 Peabody Awards and 2 of the Alfred DuPont Columbia University Silver Batons, which recognize excellence in broadcast and digital journalism. So it's a great crew. So what I wanted to start off with a little bit was just to talk about one of the reasons we chose your piece. It was a great category. There was a lot of work. But we were really impressed with how, in this story, which is about tariffs and the trade war between the United States, started by with the president and China, you took what is a fairly well-covered topic, started from what seemed to be at the beginning, quite a typical way of looking at that. You talked with steel workers, talked about, the lost jobs in the steel industry, went to the other side, the companies that have to purchase steel and how the tariffs were causing problems. But then you broadened it out and we went with you through this, I guess, roughly hour-long journey into a much more complex understanding of the issue as you showed viewers, and went, to China to elsewhere in the United States, and sort of developed this much more comprehensive look at the issue, which was what we were really impressed by. So I wanted to just start with talking a little bit about, what made you decide to take on this subject, that was worth doing this, given that it is a subject that at the time was getting a ton of coverage in the daily press and regular news. So talk a little bit about kind of where the idea came from, and then talk a little bit how you developed it. Rick,
thank you. And if I can, just real quick, want to give a shout out to a few other folks that aren't with us. These are obviously collaborative efforts and involve a lot of people. In particular, co-editor Adam Lingo, our director of photography Tim Grucha, our IRW Frontline fellow Emily Crawford, the workshop itself, which has been supporting our work and co-producing the work, and obviously Frontline and the executives there, Rainey Aronson and Andrew Metz, and NPR, who is aptly represented by Laura. So I don't need to say more about that. But we have been collaborating, which has been, it really worked well in terms of being able to use multiple platforms and also bring more reporting resources to the stories. And finally, also thanks to OPC and yourself for recognizing the work. In a nutshell, we had been looking, this was back in the, I guess what would have been the summer of 2018 at the time. And we were looking at a couple of subjects and trying to figure out what we wanted to do next. And in some ways, you know, and this was a subject that was sort of out there, but in some ways it got inspired by just a simple question that came from our bosses, and we always listen to those questions pretty intently. And it was, what's up with these tariffs? You know, what does this mean? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? And you know, we didn't know. You know, we kind of like, well, you know, a lot of coverage on this, but hard to figure out is this, you know, what this all means and whether it's a smart thing to be doing or not be doing. And so it sort of was the animating question really as we began. And that, what, you know, you were, you know, referred to this sort of journey that we took. And frankly, that was the journey of our reporting, you know, trying to understand what was going on with the tariffs, and then realizing that there was a lot more behind those tariffs, and a lot more behind the relationship between the US and China, and the significance of that relationship, and frankly, how that relationship was being upended, not just through the tariffs, but really through the Trump administration's actions.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, and as you mentioned, yeah, sort of the structure of the piece, it was very interesting because as you went to each new place, the place mirrored, you know, the deepening, you know, kind of, it was almost like a layer cake, you know, the sort of each layer got deeper and deeper into it. And Laura, I wanted to ask you about that, you know, the sort of, as you went to each place and sort of your reporting was opening up, you know, these new issues, started with the steel industry, and then I think then went to China, you know, and talked with the auto manufacturers there, and you were at a trade show, and then came back to the US and ended up in Silicon Valley at a very different question, which is all about kind of future technology, you know, and the role it plays in trade relations and overall economic power. So can you talk a little bit about, as you did that reporting, you know, you very much as a viewer feel like you're going through a journey with you. Did it feel that way as you were reporting it? How did that kind of play out?
Absolutely. I mean, it felt like we were starting a story about soybeans on somebody's farm. And that just took us from one thing to the next. Before we knew it, we were in Silicon Valley asking about, you know, the theft of secrets and whether or not the United States was going to remain a superpower. You know, it's just, you don't really ever know where these things are going to take you. And I think one of the most interesting parts about this is seeing how the decisions that are made at such a high level, you know, I mean, not only at the top of the administration in the United States, but at the top of China, affect the daily lives of people at a steel mill in Middletown, Ohio, or growing soybeans out on the farms. And then even, you know, we went out to a conference in Silicon Valley where we saw, you know, people making gazillions of dollars on technology and investing in technology, but on the one hand, very excited about China being there, but I'm a little bit nervous. Like, why is China here? Are they our friends? Are they our collaborators? Are they our money bag, or are they a threat? And watching all of these people try to sort that out. I mean, even the folks that we were meeting just on the ground in Ohio were saying, you know, benefit from cheap prices. And then at the same time, this was affecting their ability to get up in the morning and go to work. And we saw these towns decimated by the trade war or the United States' inability to launch an effective trade war for decades over steel. And then we saw, you know, so much incredible money in Silicon Valley coming down. It was really interesting to see how people's lives were affected by the decisions that are made like this. And it was really great. I think one of my favorite parts about this film was seeing the people from the Trump administration fight over it in the film, you know, and having different, you know, ways at coming at it.